GOP pulled together in 3 months to pass a landmark tax plan. That was the pitch from John Leganski, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy's 26-year-old floor director, to the more than 24 Republican leadership staffers assembled around the long rectangular conference table at the back of Speaker Paul Ryan's office. It was less than 2 weeks until the rollout of the Republican tax framework, and anxiety about a redux of the failed healthcare effort was palpable across GOP offices on the Hill. At its core was a question that would become central to the tax bill's success: how do we do the exact opposite of everything we did on healthcare? That's where Leganski's idea took hold, several aides inside the meeting told CNN. When it came to the introduction of the Republican tax framework, Leganski reasoned, keep the members away from the press to limit their ability to attack the proposal right out of the gate. Perhaps more importantly, lock them into a conference room until everyone has had every question addressed, and every major concern mollified. You never get a second chance to make that first impression, one GOP aide said. And our first impression on healthcare was Republicans nuking their own bill the day it came out. The day the House GOP repeal and replace effort was unveiled, it was a matter of minutes before the circular firing squad unloaded. For taxes, Republican staffers quickly moved to set up an unofficial retreat. They kicked around Annapolis or Baltimore, before eventually settling on the National Defense University, a campus in southwest Washington on the grounds of Fort McNair, where members of Congress always have access to facilities. The retreat would go off without a hitch 11 days later. And by the time it was over, even the conservative House Freedom Caucus was ready to endorse the proposal. If the first impression mattered, this was a rousing success, one that laid the groundwork for the passage of the landmark legislation just short of 3 months later. The story of how Republicans achieved something that just 3 months ago seemed as laughable as it was impossible, a sweeping overhaul of the U.S. tax code before Christmas, is one defined by unexpected speed, tens of millions of dollars in outside spending and a series of lobbying and House-Senate parochial skirmishes. Did you believe we'd ever be at this day, with this bill, on this floor, with the outcome that we know is going to happen? McCarthy asked reporters before the House vote Tuesday. Ryan quipped, "Let's see a show of hands." By Wednesday afternoon, the Republican tax bill will be cleared through Congress, a half day later than expected due to procedural snags in the Senate, but no less of a major legislative accomplishment, which the White House plans on celebrating with a ceremony a few hours after the House passes it for a second, and final, time. Alfredo Ortiz, the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network, said candidly, many thought that this would be something that would be taken care of in the spring of next year, even as he had advocated to do it by Christmas. But most of all, the passage of the bill is rooted as much in the GOP's healthcare failure as it is in devotion to a particular policy agenda. This recounting comes from interviews with more than 24 lawmakers, senior aides, administration officials and lobbyists deeply involved in the process. It's a plan that leans heavily on dramatic changes for businesses, first among them a sharp 14 percentage point cut to the corporate rate. On the individual side, the benefits are less robust, but shown to provide a tax cut, on average, for every income class in the near term. The standard deduction is doubled, as is the child tax credit. In the plan's first year, 80% of households would get a tax cut, according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. But the plan has been pilloried by Democrats and panned in public opinion polls for its perceived shortcomings. The individual cuts expire after 8 years. Let me be clear, this tax bill will be an anchor around the ankles of every Republican, Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the chamber, told reporters Tuesday. If they haven't learned it yet, they're going to learn it next November. Republicans will rue the day they pass this bill, and the American people will never let them forget it. The percentage of total cuts lean toward the wealthy. Even accounting for growth, it potentially adds $1 trillion to the deficit. And the corporate overhaul underscores a key split in economic ideology of the two parties. The permanent benefits are designed to bolster economic growth, and along with it, wages. It's a result that relies heavily on outside economic factors simply out of Republican control. Yet Republicans, spurred by legislative failure and electoral uncertainty, united behind a central belief in the efficacy of tax cuts and bolstered by a White House that, unlike with its healthcare push, served as a unifying, as opposed to divisive, force, pushed through the $1.5 trillion proposal. I was worried about tax reform. I was very worried that we'd come back and do the same thing we did on healthcare, said Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana. But it didn't happen. And about 25% of the way through, I said, we're going to put this one together. I can tell. It just felt completely different.